From the League of Minnesota Cities, this is The City Speak. I'm your host, Luke Fisher. Throughout all of season 4, we've been talking to leaders from across the state about the challenges that they've faced in their careers and the things that they've done to overcome whatever obstacles in their way. Our next guest is a great person that has a wonderful story to share with us. Her name is Anne Norris, and she's the city manager in Crystal. She served in that role since 2000. But before being appointed the city manager there, she worked as a community development director and assistant city manager. Before joining Crystal, Anne also worked for the cities of New Brighton, Ramsey, and Hopkins. I've known Anne for quite a while through the Minnesota City Managers Association and know her as a Barrett Award winner, which is the top honor that organization bestows on city managers in our state. So Anne, welcome and thanks for being here.
I'm happy to be here. I hope I can do you proud.
Oh, absolutely. We're not worried about that at all. So I'm curious, you've had a long career in city management. What drew you initially to public sector leadership?
The simple answer is I wanted to help people and I wanted to make a difference in my community. The backstory of that is my mother was on the local school board and my father was on the local Parks and Rec Commission. So I didn't have a choice. I think it was in my genes. And I love the local level of government because that's where things happen. I think you have the most ability to make the biggest impact. And so that's what brought me to public sector.
So, Anne, one of the things I'm sure you learned in city manager school was that communications is something that's super important and critical to keeping everyone in the public and on your team and with the council on the same page. And it seems like in the pandemic, it's been something that's been a lot harder, but that there's a lot more emphasis on than maybe there ever has been before. I'm curious if there's ever been a time when you've learned kind of one of those crucial lessons around clear communications and the importance of good communications that have sort of buoyed you and carried you through the times that we're living in right now.
I wish I could say I've never made that mistake, but oh mercy, I've had way too many communication snafus to admit. But a big one happened right before the pandemic as we were working on a budget. In Crystal, I try to make the budget process a team sport of senior staff and the city council so that we are all very clear about what it is we're asking for at the staff level, what the council thinks is acceptable to the community. When we were working on the 2020 budget, the council made a commitment that they really wanted to increase the amount of the levy to go towards capital. And they were pretty okay with a hefty, like 2-digit levy increase. And so staff worked really hard to deliver what we thought they wanted. However, we were not clear on how we got to be able to deliver that hefty increase. Rather than telling the council it was an overall 9% tax levy, we said the average home value would see a 9% tax levy, which sounded great. The council thought great. At preliminary levy, they approved it. And then when the Department of Revenue prints all the average levies, the mayor freaked out because he got a phone call from one of our local papers and said, hey, Crystal's levy increases 18%. What gives?
Wow.
So that was a little bit different than we'd led the council to believe. Shame on me. So, of course, the mayor is frantically calling everyone else on the council. Meanwhile, I'm off on vacation in Europe. I have no idea that this is all blowing up in staff's face and people are trying to call me. And of course, I'm not available. So I came back, listened to the work session when the mayor essentially said, this is not acceptable. I don't care whose fault it is, but we got to figure this out. And then Monday morning, right after I got back, I sat down with the mayor and one of the council members, walked through what I thought we heard, what they wanted to see. So trying to communicate, even though I clearly hadn't done a good communication this far, then got together with the finance director and came up with 3 alternatives for the council to consider the next night at their work session. We obviously delayed the decision on the levy. You're not going to do that when you've got an 18% increase. So at the Truth in Taxation hearing, I was very careful to make a public apology to all residents, most of whom were not in the room, but on air about, I am so sorry, there was some miscommunication and we didn't portray the levy increase very effectively. And I reassured the public and the council that the final levy would not be 18%. It would be closer to the 9%, which the council had approved. We clearly lost some trust between staff and the council and with the community. So clearly lessons learned. Public apology is a big deal. Do what you said you were going to do, which was, fix the numbers so it was right. And then after the whole dust settled, I went back to the council and I said, okay, this is what I heard during the whole budget snafu. And then how do you want the budget presented in the future? And so we walked through a lot of things that the council wanted. And we changed how we do the presentations, how we present the information. But I think honesty, being forthright, owning the mistake is a huge deal. And if you can't do that, it's going to be really hard to maintain trust of the public, of your peers, of the community.
You said that trust was one of the things that was impacted through the communication snafu. And I'm curious what else you've done to regain trust with council and with the public along the way, beyond just the initial and immediate response.
Oh, I think we try to check in with the council more frequently about where we are with the budget or any major issue, and to try to communicate with the community so people understand what the council is doing, particularly with the budget. As I always tell the council, the budget is the council's major policy document. So their priorities have got to be reflected in the budget, and the community needs to understand what those priorities are and what is in the budget. And so I think over the last 5 years, we have really simplified and, in my mind, improved how we present the budget information to both the council and the community so that it's much more understandable. And it's not just spreadsheets of numbers. It's more than that.
I like the way that you called the budget the council's major or most significant policy document. Have you found that the council's been more willing to be engaged in the budget process? Because sometimes it is just a spreadsheet with a bunch of numbers and people sort of look at the bottom line, or they pick their thing that they want to really keep an eye on. Or have things sort of settled back out?
I think there are still scabs that are not totally healed. So I think there is some apprehension. I have to give the council a lot of credit. They are pretty clear on what their expectations are when we talk early in the year, so that if we're delivering that by August, there shouldn't be any surprises. I mean, the big surprise is how is any levy impact going to affect valuations? I mean, that's one thing we don't have control over. I think that was such a painful experience, like I said, all the way around. I think we've all worked hard to get past that and to improve the process and improve communications.
So, Anne, through all of season 4, we've been asking people about what they've been doing to stay resilient and to keep motivated, because it's hard to work in the public sector right now. And I'm curious what you're doing to stay resilient and stay motivated.
I am fortunate. I have a ton of friends that I am close to, even if I can't see them all in person, talk to them. I am very close to my family. I read a ton of books, a lot of memoirs and biographies.
Cool.
And if you look at what other people go through, oh man,
That's
it's
awesome.
not that bad.
Anne Norris, thank you so much for joining us and for the story that you shared about communication.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Listening to Anne's story, it was obvious that there are a lot of good lessons that we could all take away to be better communicators with our councils, with the staff that we work with, and with the public. But we can't emphasize the importance of communication enough. And I think Anne's tips around owning up when you make a mistake, doing everything you can to ensure trust, and doing what you say you'll do are really important for all of us to take away. I know that those are things that I'll use in my own work. All right, I want to say thank you to Anne Norris again for joining us today, and for the 10 other guests that made time for us along the way this season. I also want to send a special shout out to Adriana Tamali for anchoring half of these episodes and hosting conversations with city officials. This season has been great, I think, because it's given us a chance to learn from some of the mistakes that people have made and from the lessons that they've learned along the way. That's taken vulnerability from our guests, and that's something that I think is really commendable and something that we ought to learn from. That it's okay to do that. It's okay to be honest and say, I didn't get that quite right, or I want to do that over again. So listeners, think about that as you approach the upcoming year. Who do you want to be and how do you want to show up as a leader? If you have any ideas for us on the next season, we'd love to hear them. You can email us anytime at podcast@lmc.org. Have a happy holiday and a safe new year. And until we see you again, I hope you're well.